A washed-up actor hasn't gotten a job in years. He has lost his ability to remember lines. But after looking for work for a very long time, finally he gets the lead role in a Broadway musical. When he arrives at the theatre, the director tells him, "You have the most important part, but you only have one line. You walk onto stage with a rose. Bring it close to your nose with your thumb, index and middle fingers, and sniff it deeply. Then you will say, 'Oh, the smell of my lover.'" When it comes time for him to say his line, he walks onto stage and says, "Oh, the smell of my lover." With this, the crowd begins to laugh hysterically, and the director explodes with anger. The actor runs off stage and asks, "Did I forget my lines?" The director replies, "No, you forgot the flower." Charlie was playing with his little brother Mickey when the little boy asked whether he could fly like Superman. "Sure you can, Mickey," Charlie said. "Just flap your arms really, really hard." So Mickey climbed up on the windowsill, started flapping like mad, jumped, then smashed into the ground just a few inches below. Horrified, their mother came screaming into the room and said, "What the heck happened?" Charlie said, "I was just teaching Mickey not to believe everything someone tells him." A woman in a supermarket is following a grandfather and his badly behaved grandson. He has his hands full with the child screaming for sweets, biscuits, and all sorts of things. The granddad says in a controlled voice, "Easy, William, we won't be long. Easy, boy." Another outburst, and she hears the granddad calmly say, "It's okay, William. Just a couple more minutes and we'll be out of here. Hang in there, boy." At the checkout, the little horror is throwing items out of the trolley. Grandad says again in a controlled voice, William, relax, buddy. Don't get upset. We'll be home in 5 minutes. Stay cool, William." Very impressed, she goes outside to where the grandfather is loading his groceries and the boy into the car. She says, "It's none of my business. But you were amazing in there. I don't know how you did it. That whole time you kept your composure, and no matter how loud and disruptive he got, you just calmly kept saying things would be okay. William is very lucky to have you as his granddad." "Thanks," says the grandfather. "But I am William. The little bastard's name is Kevin." So my wife managed to crash the car again today. When the police showed up, she was all fired up, insisting that the guy she hit was being totally reckless. "He was on his phone. Can you believe it?" she exclaimed. And to make matters worse, he was sitting there, casually sipping on a can of beer. The officer, trying his best to hold back a smile, took a deep breath, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Ma'am, he can do whatever he wants. In his own living room." Late night. The husband is browsing adult websites on his computer thinking that his wife is sound asleep. The wife wakes up to go to the bathroom, and then, without saying a word, and without the husband noticing, stands behind his back observing. All of a sudden, he hears her say, "Go back. Another page. There. Those are the curtains I want for our bedroom." 2 children, Johnny and Alex, were sitting outside a clinic. Alex was crying very loudly. "Johnny, why are you crying?" "Alex, I came here for a blood test." "Johnny, so, are you afraid?" "Alex, no. For the blood test, they cut my finger." After hearing this, Johnny started weeping, making Alex feel surprised as well as curious, and Alex asked, "Why are you crying now?" "Johnny, I came for a urine test." Wife goes to the doctor, complaining that her husband farts unbelievably in his sleep. It smells so bad that it has become unbearable to sleep in the same room. She tells the doctor that her husband won't come to see a doctor because he doesn't believe he has a farting problem. The doctor suggests some pills, but the wife refuses, saying that the husband won't take them. The doctor, confused as to why, then she is there, tells her jokingly, "Why don't you then, when he goes to sleep, stick one end of the hose in his ass and the other put it out of the window?" To his surprise, the woman takes it as a real suggestion, thanks the doctor, and excitedly leaves. That very night she did just as instructed and got the best night's sleep for a long time. She gets up before the husband removes the hose and the husband doesn't know any better. She is so excited that she may have found a cure. The second night she repeats the same thing. However, she wakes up in the morning to find her husband white as chalk, eyes blue, and breathing very heavily. "Husband, what's the matter? Are you ill? I think I should have listened to you and gone to see a doctor about my farts," says the husband. "At night I farted so hard that I woke to find that I farted my gut right out of my ass. It took me the whole night to shove it all back in." Two 90-year-old men, Sam and Alex, had been best friends their entire lives. As it became clear that Alex was nearing the end of his life, Sam visited him every day. One day, Sam said, "Alex, we've both loved basketball for as long as we can remember. We played together every weekend for years. Please do me one favor. When you get to heaven, somehow let me know if there's basketball up there." Alex, lying on his deathbed, looked at Sam and said, "Sam, you've been my best friend for so long. If it's possible at all, I'll do that for you." A short while later, Alex passed away. Then, one night, a few days after Alex's passing, Sam was jolted awake by a bright flash of light and a voice calling his name. "Sam, Sam, who's there?" Sam said, sitting up quickly. "Who is it?" "Sam, it's me, Alex." "You can't be Alex. Alex just passed away," Sam replied in disbelief. "I'm telling you, it's me, Alex," the voice insisted. "Alex, where are you?" "I'm in heaven," Alex replied. "I have some great news and a little bit of bad news." "Tell me the good news first," Sam urged. "The good news," Alex said, "is that there's basketball in heaven. Even better, all our old friends who passed before us are here too. And we're all young again. Plus, it's always summer here. No rain, no snow. And the best part is, we can play basketball all day long and we never get tired." "That sounds amazing," Sam exclaimed. "It's beyond anything I ever imagined. So what's the bad news?" "The bad news," Alex said with a chuckle, "is that you're on the team for this Saturday's game." A blonde was driving when she found herself caught in a snowstorm. Rather than panicking, she remembered her dad's advice. If you ever get stuck in a snowstorm, just follow a snowplow. Sure enough, not long after, a snowplow appeared. She began following it closely, feeling confident in her decision. For about 45 minutes, she stayed right behind the plow. Eventually, the snowplow driver stopped, got out, and approached her car. Curious, he asked, "Ma'am, why are you following me?" She cheerfully explained, "My dad told me if I ever got stuck in a snowstorm, I should follow a snowplow." The driver chuckled and replied, "Well, I just finished clearing the Walmart parking lot. Do you want to follow me to Best Buy next?" A guy was staring at a girl's t-shirt with a cat design for quite a while. The girl finally asks, "Haven't you ever seen a cat before?" The guy grins and replies, "Oh, I've seen plenty of cats, but I've never seen one guarding milk like that before. Mrs. Smith, why do you think you deserve a raise? Maid, I have 3 reasons. The first is that I cook better than you. Mrs. Smith, who told you that? Maid, your husband did. The second reason is that I clean better than you do. Mrs. Smith, who told you that? Maid, your husband did. The final reason is that I am better in bed than you are. Mrs. Smith, I suppose my husband said that too? Maid, no, the gardener. Mrs. Smith, how much do you want? One day, a teacher walks into her classroom and announces to the class that every Friday she will ask a question to the class, and whoever answers correctly doesn't have to go to school the following Monday. On the first Friday, the teacher asked, how many grains of sand are on the beach? Needless to say, no one could answer. The following Friday, the teacher asked the class, how many stars are in the sky? And again, no one could answer. Frustrated little Johnny decides that the next Friday he would somehow answer the question and get a 3-day weekend. So Thursday night, Johnny takes 2 ping pong balls and paints them black. The next day, he brings them to school in a paper bag. At the end of the day, just when the teacher says, here's this week's question, Johnny empties the bag onto the floor, sending the ping pong balls rolling to the front of the room. The entire class starts laughing. The teacher says, okay, who's the comedian with the black balls? Immediately, little Johnny stands up and says, Bill Cosby, see you on Tuesday. Bob, a 65-year-old, extremely wealthy widower, strolls into the country club with a stunning 25-year-old blonde by his side. Her beauty and charm leave everyone in the room speechless. She clings to Bob's arm, hanging on his every word as if he's the most fascinating man in the world. His buddies at the club are in shock. They pull him aside and ask, Bob, how'd you land a girlfriend like that? Bob grins and says, girlfriend, she's my wife. His friends are floored, but can't resist asking, how on earth did you convince her to marry you? Bob leans in with a sly smile and says, I lied about my age. They nod knowingly. Ah, you told her you were 50? Bob chuckles and replies, nope, I told her I was 90. A man goes to Japan on business and hires a prostitute for the night. He doesn't speak any Japanese, and she barely speaks any English. While they are going at it, she yells out, Gamasu! Gamasu! Knowing that she has been satisfied, he goes to bed. The next day he plays golf, and one of his associates gets a hole-in-one. Everyone goes crazy, so to enjoy the excitement, he yells, Gamasu! Gamasu! Everybody goes silent, and one of his Japanese associates says, what do you mean, wrong hole? Kevin walked into a doctor's office, and the receptionist asked him what he had. Kevin said, shingles. So she wrote down his name, address, medical insurance number, and told him to have a seat. 15 minutes later, a nurse's aide came out and asked Kevin what he had. Kevin said, shingles. So she wrote down his height, weight, a complete medical history, and told Kevin to wait in the examining room. A half hour later, a nurse came in and asked Kevin what he had. Kevin said, shingles. So the nurse gave Kevin a blood test, a blood pressure test, an electrocardiogram, and told Kevin to take off all his clothes and wait for the doctor. An hour later, the doctor came in and found Kevin sitting patiently in the and asked Kevin what he had. Kevin said, shingles. The doctor asked, where? Kevin said, outside on the truck. Where do you want me to unload him? A man driving down the road slams on his brakes and honks the horn because there is a car stopped in the middle of the road. He storms out of his car and looks inside the parked car to see a naked couple lying inside. He yells at them, "What are you doing in the middle of the road? Why didn't you move when I honked?" The man in the car yells back, "You were coming, I was coming, and she was coming. You were the only one with brakes." John looked over at his co-worker Tom. He noticed that he had an earring on one of his ears. Tom was usually a pretty conservative guy, so John is curious. He approached Tom and asked him, "If you don't mind me asking, what's with the earring?" Tom replied, "Don't worry about it, it's just an earring." John let it go for a few minutes, but then his curiosity piqued again. "So how long have you been wearing an earring?" Tom replied, "Ever since my wife found it in our bed." A hypochondriac goes to his doctor. Hypochondriac. "Doctor, I have no idea what's wrong with me, but I'm in pain everywhere on my body. My stomach hurts, my bones and joints hurt. I'm always nauseous. I always have a splitting headache. I've come to you for years, and you keep telling me there's nothing wrong, but I feel like there is something very wrong with me." Doctor, we've done EKGs, ECGs, ultrasounds, X-rays, MRIs, PETs, and every imaginable blood test. I'm telling you, there is nothing wrong with you. Hypochondriac, are you sure there's nothing else you can do? I'm feeling really desperate here. At this point, I think it's time for me to find a new doctor who can find out what's wrong with me. Doctor, well, there is one more test we can do, but... The hypochondriac interrupts. "Great, let's do it. How soon can you fit me in?" Doctor, well, it just so happens that I had a cancellation tonight. Do you think you could come back around 6 p.m? Hypochondriac, done, I'll see you then. The hypochondriac arrives back at the doctor's office at 5:50 p.m, ready for further testing. A nurse guides him into an operating room, has him remove all his clothes and put on a hospital gown, then has him lie flat on the operating table. Soon after, the anesthesiologist and the doctor arrive. The anesthesiologist starts administering the anesthesia. Doctor, don't worry. If there's anything wrong with you, this test will prove it. Hypochondriac, just a few seconds from being completely under. I'm so happy to hear that. By the way, what is the test called? And just as the hypochondriac fades out of consciousness, the doctor says, "Oh, it's called an autopsy." My dad gave me money to pay for the electricity bill, but instead I bought a lottery ticket for a brand new car. When I got home, I explained to my dad what I had done, and he beat the crap out of me. But the next day, when my dad woke up and opened the door, outside our house was a brand new car. We all cried, especially me, because the car was from the electricity company, and they were there to cut off the electricity. Then my dad beat the crap out of me again. A man goes to an assassin because his wife is sleeping with his best friend. The assassin tells him, "It's going to cost you $1,000 per bullet." The man says, "What if you miss?" The assassin replies, "I don't miss." With this, they head off to the motel where his wife is with his friend. The man says, "I want my wife shot in the head, and I want you to blow my friend's dick off." The assassin takes aim and waits a few minutes. "Aren't you going to shoot?" The assassin replies, "Hold up, I think I can save you $1,000. A magician worked on a cruise ship, performing the same tricks week after week since the audience was always new. However, there was one big problem: the captain's parrot. The bird watched every show and eventually figured out how all the tricks were done. Once it caught on, the parrot would start yelling in the middle of the magician's act. "Look, it's not the same hat." Or, "He's hiding the flowers under the table." Or, "Why are all the cards the ace of spades?" The magician was furious but couldn't do anything about it. The parrot belonged to the captain. One stormy night, the ship tragically sank, taking almost everyone down with it. By a stroke of luck, the magician managed to survive, finding himself clinging to a piece of wood in the vast ocean. And as fate would have it, the parrot was there too, floating on the same piece of wood. They glared at each other in silence, the tension thick between them. This went on for a day, then 2 days, then 3. Finally, on the 4th day, the parrot couldn't take it anymore and blurted out, "Okay, I give up. Where's the damn ship?" A man gets pulled over by a cop. The cop goes up to the man's window and informs him that he appears to be swerving a bit. "Son, I just need you to do a quick breathalyzer test." "I can't do that, officer. I have severe asthma. If I blow into that tube, I could risk an attack." "All right, then just come down to the station and we'll do a blood test." "I can't do that either. I'm a hemophiliac. Any puncture will end up bleeding for hours, then I'll pass out." "Okay, then step out of the car and we'll do a standard field sobriety test." "Sorry, but I have a slight vitamin B12 deficiency, so I naturally shake while doing basic tasks, so the tests would be inconclusive." "Well then, just walk along in a straight line." "I can't do that either." "Why?" "Because I'm drunk." Tyler and Connor have a friend named Nico. They like everything about him except the fact that he is extremely optimistic and always sees the bright side of everything. So one day, they decide to tell him a story that he cannot find the positive in. Nico meets Tyler at his house and Nico asks where Connor is. Tyler tells him, "You didn't hear. He found his girlfriend with another guy last night and killed them both. Then he killed himself." Nico says, "Thank God." Tyler looks at him and says, "Are you serious?" Nico says, "Yeah, if that would have happened a few nights ago, I would be dead." A biker is passing the zoo when he sees a little girl leaning into the lion's cage. Suddenly, the lion grabs her by the cuff of her jacket and tries to pull her inside to slaughter her under the eyes of her screaming parents. The biker jumps off his bike, runs to the cage, and hits the lion square on the nose with a powerful punch. Whimpering from the pain, the lion jumps back, letting go of the girl, and the biker brings her to her terrified parents, who thank him endlessly. A New York Times reporter has watched the whole event. The reporter says, "Sir, this was the most gallant and brave thing I saw a man do in my whole life." The biker replies, "Why, it was nothing the lion was behind bars. I just saw this little kid in danger and acted as I felt right." The reporter says, "Well, I'm a journalist from the New York Times, and tomorrow's paper will have this story on the front page." "So what do you do for a living, and what political affiliation do you have?" The biker replies, "I'm a US Marine and a Republican." The following morning, the biker buys the New York Times to see if it indeed brings news of his actions, and reads on the front page, "US Marine assaults African immigrant and steals his lunch." A woman goes into a tattoo parlor and tells the tattoo artist that she wants a tattoo of a turkey on her right thigh, right up just below. She also wants him to put Happy Thanksgiving under the turkey. So the guy does it, and it comes out looking really good. The woman then instructs him to put a Santa Claus with Merry Christmas up on her left thigh. So the guy does it, and it comes out looking good too. As the woman is getting dressed to leave, the tattoo artist says, "If you don't mind, could you tell me why you had me put such unusual tattoos on your thighs?" The woman answered, "I'm sick and tired of my husband complaining all the time that there's nothing good to eat between Thanksgiving and Christmas." A man who smelled like a distillery flopped on a subway seat next to a priest. The man's tie was stained, his face was plastered with red lipstick, and a half-empty bottle of gin was sticking out of his torn coat pocket. He opened his newspaper and began reading. After a few minutes, the dishevelled man turned to the priest and asked, "Say, Father, what causes arthritis?" The priest replied, "Mister, it's caused by loose living, being with cheap women, too much alcohol, and a contempt for your fellow man." "Well, I'll be," the drunk muttered, returning to his paper. The priest, thinking about what he had said, nudged the man and apologized. "I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to come on so strong. How long have you had arthritis?" "I don't have it, Father. I was just reading here that the Pope does." A man was traveling the countryside with his 8-year-old daughter. One particularly stormy night, they were forced to take shelter in a local mansion owned by a lonely widow. The widow was happy to receive guests and was very hospitable to the two weary travelers. The next morning, the father said to his daughter, "I have to take care of some business in the nearby town. Mrs. Sterling has kindly agreed to look after you while I'm gone. I will be back tomorrow morning. Promise to be good while I'm gone." "Yes, Father, I promise," the little girl said, though deep down, she was nervous about spending the night in the big house without her father. Nighttime came and the widow took the little girl to her room upstairs. But not an hour had passed when the lady heard crying from the little girl's room. "What is it, my sweet child? Did you have a nightmare?" The widow inquired softly. "There is someone in this room, behind the curtains." "I'm scared," the girl whimpered pitifully. The widow walked to the window and pulled the curtains aside. "See, there is no one here. It was probably the draft moving the curtains, as this is a very old house. Now be a good little girl and go back to sleep." But only a short moment had passed when the widow once again heard cries from the little girl's room. "My sweet child, what is it now?" "There is someone here, I swear. I saw it in the corner." "It's a ghost." The little girl whimpered in her bed. "There is no one here but you and me, dear. It is probably just shadows from the old oak tree outside, playing tricks with your eyes. Your father will be back with us first thing tomorrow morning. Now, for the last time, be a good little girl and try to get some sleep." An hour passed and the widow was woken up by a knock on her door. She saw the little girl standing outside in her nightgown weeping pitifully. "For heaven's sake, child, it's past midnight and you should be fast asleep. What is it now?" the widow asked, exasperated. "I saw the ghost again, miss." "It won't let me sleep. Can I come sleep next to you?" "Now listen to me carefully, child. I have lived in this house for 367 years, and not once have I seen a ghost. Now for the last time, go back to bed and try to get some sleep."